Well, welcome to the first the first podcast of the Pettitshire Pan-Pals. your pandemic kind of pandemic pen pals. We're trying out something new, and as always, there's a little bit of technical challenges. But there's my brother, and I'm gonna unmute him for him. Okay, hey, it's my
Hi
brother.
there.
It's Dathaniel.
It's me.
And I'm Antonio, and we are the Pettit Brothers.
It's
And
true. We're brothers with each
what?
other.
Oh, what can we say? For those who are just getting to see us for the first time, um, Nathaniel and I have had a podcast since
Brother
2004.
cast.
Brothercast podcast. Yes, the Pettit Brothers Brothercast has been on the air since, well, it depends on who you ask, but Dan and I have been producing them since 2014, but unofficially they've gone back to 1963 or so, and so it's been
Yeah,
about,
late 50s, early 60s, something like that.
yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So that's one of the interesting things is that between the two of us, none of us have ever seen every episode of
No,
the Pettit
God, no.
Brothers
No.
Brothercast,
According to the lore, we haven't even performed in every episode. We're like the 12th and 13th actors to have portrayed these two characters.
right? The current incarnations of ourselves. So it sets up a bit of a dilemma when there's something like a novel, because it has our names in it, and yet these are not exactly our own selves as characters, but
No,
um,
no, 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 no. Right, that's right. These are not in fact intended to be just like Mary Jane or Mary Sue versions of us or something. There's these the names are about all we have in common with these kids.
it's true. And when we started, originally this was a project just because as adults, Dan and I really, missed having opportunities to like work with each other on different projects, and
Yeah, well, of course,
you know,
growing up together, we'd always do creative stuff together.
yeah,
We'd always do projects of various kinds, big drawings and things like that. And so it was just sort of an adult version of that.
yeah, and we started out doing like a kind of back and forth weekly conversation for a number of weeks, and I have a background in production and audio editing, and so it didn't take long before I got more and more involved in the production side of things, and before we knew it, we were producing much more heavily scripted and produced shows on our
Higher
podcast.
and higher concept.
Yes, very much high concept. And the last project we did was a couple years ago, and that is the project upon which this broadcast is based. So, Lights in the Old Fort was a podcast project that was kind of community based. It was based on what? So, you want to talk a little bit about where our inspiration was for the Lights in the
Well,
Old
so originally it was actually just one line item on a whole like notepad full of different like genre script ideas that we had. Um, and I think the header for it was something like children's mystery novel or like young adult mystery novel or something like that.
like Hardy Boys, Nancy
Yeah,
Drew
Hardy Boys
style.
style mystery novel. That's what it
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
And um, and so that it sounded like such a paint by numbers idea that we could just whip it off. I think originally we thought it was going to be like one week we
Yeah,
would do we would do that story or something like that.
yeah.
But anyway, as we wrote the script for that and it got more and more elaborate, it sort of just we got our footing so well into the setting and the nuanced narrative around what we were creating that it expanded out to include more and more characters, and as it included more and more characters, brother realized that if we were doing an audio, if we're doing a recording version of this, it's just nobody's going to be able to distinguish he and I doing all these separate voices in dialogue. And so we decided to bring in a bunch of other people. Who did it start with? Do you remember?
Oh, well, I mean, sort of chronologically, it's so the we ended up having 37 different actors, or 37 different roles, and you actually voiced a number of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that project took 2 years to complete,
Jesus,
from
is that
start to
right?
finish, from writing to scripting to then doing all the recording and editing. So it was about a 2 year project, and that came out in 2018. So what we're up to today, this is a little bit different style. We've actually started writing a novelization based upon that podcast. The podcast was amazing and it's a fantastic standalone project, which
Okay,
I
so
recommend.
right, but the podcast is a sat a par no, it's not, it's an homage to like Hardy Boy style mystery novels. The novel is Antonio's attempt to actually create the novel upon which that was based, the
Yeah.
actual novel, the actual young adult novel. He's actually writing that, and that is what you'll be hearing.
So we're kind of retro writing the novel based on the script for the podcast, which in some ways is really easy because the
It's the same
story's
way with
complete.
War and Peace.
There's not a lot of mystery about where story is going, so it really is just converting the script now into the novel. So we have the first
Normal process, right?
what's that?
That's the normal process.
Yeah,
This
well,
is how Hemingway did it.
right, the Hemingway podcast. So this we have the first 10 chapters completed, and over the next couple of weeks we'll read what we have so far, and that's really kind of more than anything just keep my creative juices flowing, and I want to continue writing this story, and so I saw this as a good opportunity to kind of get my juices flowing again. And then going forward, in subsequent weeks, this is really going back to our kind of variety show roots. Each week we want to have some kind of different discussion or topic or experiment or, some kind of fun and games that we can have as a family. We are doing this over Zoom, which is cool. So
Right, that's right,
we
exactly.
can,
It'll be interactive, and
yeah,
it will be a call-in show. So
right, a call-in show. And so that there's, I'm seeing that this is kind of a burgeoning new platform for broadcasting.
I know. Congrats to those
But
who own Zoom stock.
right, you're about to see big returns. Um, but I think that is about enough backstory. Why don't we go ahead and get started with our narrated reading of Hudson Fort. And today we are very, very lucky to have with us our dear mother, Linda Pettit, who really is, in a lot of ways, I think the inspiration for I don't know, kind of writing these stories,
The
experiencing these
tone
stories.
of the story, certainly.
Um, Mom has been, as she says, reading to young men for much of her life, and has just the most beautifully honed storytelling.
Comforting.
Yeah, just a comfort in. Yeah, so we really are honored to have you here with us, Mom. And would you like to introduce yourself and say what
Oh, my goodness, I haven't expected that. But yeah, this is a lot of fun, and we're going to see how it goes.
Yes.
And I'm reading a script, so I'm not looking at faces like you might do on Zoom, but I'm looking at the script.
That's true. None of us can see each other right now.
Yeah. So I can start. Should I start reading?
Yeah, I had one thing that I thought was really funny that would be that if someone thought that you had written these stories,
Ha!
Oh,
that would be a pretty funny twist.
No way.
But no, so we're just really, we thank you for reading along with us and playing and just, giving us an excuse to get together during this weird pandemic and
Yes.
have a kind of a fun
Yeah.
family adventure.
Being
So,
by and
Yeah.
large the best mom ever.
Oh, well, sure. And setting up this Zoom thing is the hardest part.
yeah, right, the rest is a
For the
piece of
moment.
So
Don't have it
yeah,
all
but
feel important, good enough.
the way that we are thinking about doing this is Linda is going to be narrating the story, and then Dan and I are going to kind of reprise our roles as ourselves and various other characters as well. So it'll be a little bit like a play, but it's keep in mind we're reading a novel.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'd love to hear what you
Yeah,
think.
hopefully the narrative sections between the dialogue will help the audience really
Hmm.
live the story, really be engrossed in the story.
Great. All right.
Okay. Lights in the Old Fort. Chapter 1. fishing on Lake Martin.
Say, brother, I'm all out of bait. Can you hand me another gob of cheese?
Asks Antonio.
Sure thing.
Replies Dathaniel, his brother. Nathaniel leans back and reaches for his knapsack, which rests behind him against the metal transom of the rowboat. He takes care not to lose his grip on the fishing rod. He pauses and glances down at the wicker fishing basket sitting between his feet.
Actually, I don't think our basket can handle any more trout.
He declares.
You're probably right,
Says Antonio.
We sure have had some mighty fine luck today.
Well, it's the cheese, Antonio.
Chuckles Nathaniel.
I've never met a fish that could pass up Farmer Jurgen's cheddar cheese.
The Pettit brothers are enjoying a particularly balmy summer afternoon together on Lake Martin. The boys are seated in a small rowboat, which they'd found neatly stowed in a makeshift boathouse on the shore. Almost 2 months of summer vacation lay ahead of them, and they knew it would likely be very busy. Both had agreed that a few days up on the mirrored surface of the lake would be a great way to spend a bit of their break while the days were long and leisurely. Surely there would be time to think about school in the fall. Lake Martin's inhabitants made themselves known through their magnificent symphonic courting rituals. The steady drone of crickets and the chirping of the frogs were now punctuated by flickering from fireflies in the trees. The air was still warm and buzzing, but the water surrounding the rowboat is now emitting a cool and crisp scent, indicating that evening was soon on approach. Antonio gives Dathaniel a nod and starts to reel in his fishing line. Dathaniel soon follows as his brother picks up the oars and begins rowing back to the lake shore. Each plunge of the oars into the still water causes an echo to shoot through the woods. This ripple climbs rapidly up the sloping hillside, only to return to the valley once it bounces off the bluff. The ridge of lush green trees above the lake are saturated deeply in rich summer hues, although shadows are beginning to overtake the woods to the west of the lake.
Say, before we head back into town,
Says Dathaniel,
there's an old trailhead off the lake road that I'd like to poke around. Maybe find some old arrowheads. We've still got some good daylight left. What do you say, brother?
Well, sure, I'm always up for some sleuthing.
Antonio returns.
Actually, I hear tell there's a spot not too far from here that the colonial settlers used as a trading post in the olden days.
I know.
Exclaims Dathaniel.
Well, let's head to the shore and sniff around for a bit. See if we can find it.
The hull of the rowboat scrapes gently against the pebble shore, and Antonio hops out to pull the craft out of the water. The boys carry the rowboat to an old crane car, which had been part of a lumber outfit many years ago, but now sits abandoned at the side of the lake. They carefully turn the boat over and lean it against another small rowboat already waiting inside.
Okay, Nathaniel, what should we do with the fish?
Asks Antonio.
We should clean these before we go, shouldn't we?
But Antonio,
Coaxes Nathaniel.
well, it's not going to stay light that much longer. What if we just clean them when we get home?
Well, I don't really feel like hauling them all the way up the hill, though.
Antonio continues.
Well, then you should probably tie the basket up in a tree so that animals can't get into it.
Suggests Nathaniel wisely.
Oh, good idea, brother.
Says Antonio, spying a sturdy oak bough.
This branch seems pretty trusty. I'll make it fast here.
The wicker basket is equipped with a few straps of leather for just such an occasion, so Antonio carefully secures the basket among the foliage.
If memory serves, I seem to recall that the camp was just a few miles up from the lake. What do you think we're going to find up there?
Wonders Antonio.
Well, last spring, Mikey Conley brought a real brass Union compass to class. That floored the lot of us.
Says Nathaniel, visibly excited.
Well, I bet there's a whole bunch of old Army stuff laying around up there.
Well, I can't say we'll find all that,
Antonio cautions.
but it can't hurt to try, can it?
Brimming with enthusiasm, the two brothers begin their ascent up the trail and into the dense woods behind the lake. Many years have passed since the trail was seeing significant traffic, and yet a clear route is just barely discernible through undergrowth. Sunlight trickles through the verdant canopy of birch and hemlock trees, creating shadow puppet scenery on the forest floor. The cacophony of voices from the lake creatures gradually gives way to the echo of songbirds and eastern chipmunks chattering menacingly from their perches. The boys ventured deep into the woods, keeping their eyes peeled all the while. After hiking for what must have been an hour at least, the boys had gained significant elevation. Aside from several species of wildflowers, a caterpillar, and one rusty abandoned steam donkey, however, it was starting to seem possible that no significant artifacts had been misplaced along the trail. A bit further along, the path widens into a small glade. The clearing certainly doesn't look large enough to have been the site of a trading post, and a thorough investigation of the ground fails to yield anything valuable or interesting. Antonio extends his index finger to indicate it might be time to head back. He draws a breath and starts to speak when he spots something nearly invisible through the undergrowth.
Hey, look at this, Nathaniel.
He says, pushing the shrubby moosewood to one side.
It looks like this was an old signpost. I can't quite make it out, though. Can you read what it says?
Nathaniel brushes a few dead leaves and moss from the face of the sign with his palm as he struggles to make out the text.
It looks like it says something, Bowden, 1/2 league north.
Nathaniel puzzles.
League.
Antonio says, sounding out the word in his head.
Well, that's a unit of distance, but how far is that?
1/2 league? Let's see, a league is, let me think.
Nathaniel scrunches his nose and squints in concentration.
I think a league is maybe 3 miles. So a half a league would be, well, that'd be about 1.5 miles. Yeah, I think this is a trail marker, brother.
1.5 miles?
Responds Antonio.
Well, that's nothing. You want to go take a look?
Well, boy, do I.
Exclaims Nathaniel. A bit more pushing and prodding reveals another trail almost completely obscured by undergrowth.
We never would have found this path without that sign,
declares Antonio.
I was actually about to suggest we head home.
Vigor renewed, they continue along the pathway, which heads higher and deeper into the forest.
Hey, Antonio,
says Nathaniel, flashing a mischievous and hopeful grin.
Do you think we might run into any black bears while we're up here?
I don't know, brother,
replies Antonio.
We're still pretty close to town.
Undaunted, Nathaniel continues.
Boy, that'd give us a real story to tell the fellas, though, huh?
Well, that it would.
Antonio remarks benignly. The terrain becomes much more rugged with each step. The soft forest floor is now littered with rocks of all shapes and sizes, increasingly poking through the shrubby ground cover. The lazy summer sun now hangs at a much lower angle in the sky. Long rays of sunlight illuminate the slow-moving flows of pitch on the pine trees, bathing the entire forest in a soft golden glow.
There's a clearing up ahead,
Antonio exclaims as the two near the end of the path. Both boys leaped into a sprint and dashed through the remaining undergrowth. Chapter 2, The Bluff. The boys emerged from the forest into an expansive meadow situated on the edge of a steep bluff. A carpet of dry yellow grass growing at least knee-high sways gently in the soft breeze. The air is still warm from heat radiating from the rocky protrusions where the topsoil is thinnest.
Hey, you smell that, brother?
Asks Nathaniel as the scent of the air greets his nose.
It's the sweetgrass. It smells really nice.
They continue climbing the gently sloping meadow, approaching what appears to be the summit of the hill. As they near the cliffside, an expansive and dramatic vista captivates the boys as it stretches before them.
Wow, what a swell view,
says Antonio, surveying the panoramic scenery.
The town looks so tiny from up here. Look, there's the boardwalk, the lighthouse.
Yeah, I love the way all the building rooftops reflect the sunlight.
Nathaniel says, joining his brother on the bluff's edge.
Yeah, this is such a nice time of evening when the sun's setting behind the hills, but you can still see everything so clearly.
From this vantage point, the boys are treated to a magnificent view spanning the coastline in both directions. Downtown Jetty Bay and the marina lie directly below. The tiny structures resemble a miniature diorama of a charming New England town, rather than the bustling seaport it's known to be.
They look so peaceful up here.
croons Nathaniel, slightly craning his neck.
I think I can even make out Parsonville in the distance.
Parsonville?
Scoffs Antonio.
I don't think you can see Parsonville.
No, look.
Nathaniel interrupts.
Isn't that white dot a couple miles down the coast, the steeple on the Parsonville church?
Antonio squints and follows his brother's gaze.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Antonio cocks his head inquisitively.
How is it we've never been up here before?
Nathaniel takes a few steps, still admiring the view. His eyes scan the bluff, the side of his hand shielding his eyes from glare. He pauses as he spies something looming just beyond the thicket of pine to the left.
Golly, look there, Antonio,
cries Nathaniel. Antonio joins his brother's side to inspect the new discovery.
Hey, this is that big old lookout tower we can see from the bay. You can just see the corner of it poking out through the trees when the tide is out,
says Antonio.
I've seen it when we're out on the flats digging for clams.
Nathaniel replies.
Yeah, precisely,
remarks Antonio.
You wouldn't guess they'd build it so close to the edge of the bluff, would you?
Yeah, I always wondered how you get up here,
says Nathaniel.
I'm pretty sure that I've never seen any roads or trails up from Jetty Bay to this cliffside.
The two enter the thicket and squeeze through the sticky pine branches as they traverse the northern edge of the bluff. Nathaniel ducks under a heavy bough, leaving his brother not far behind. Antonio, several inches taller than Nathaniel, stoops under the branch as well, but as he stands up, his head brushes against the foliage. An enormous cloud of thick pollen dust is knocked loose, filling the air with a dusty yellow curtain, obscuring everything in view. A few moments later, the pollen begins to subside, and a new view materializes. The trees open onto a grassy outcropping overlooking the edge of a sheer cliffside. Fuzzy clumps of grass line the edge of the rock, overlooking a substantial drop down the bluff. The cliffside creates a small canyon Now wait, somehow I got lost. Oh, let's see. The cliffside creates a small canyon shaped like a lumpy horseshoe. Across the canyon, a well-weathered stone tower peeks over the sheer cliff face. Without saying a word, both boys make a beeline toward their new discovery. They wade through a field of unkempt shrubs and grasses and approach the side of the building closest to the woods. It's soon evident that the tower is part of a much larger structure than either of them had assumed.
This looks like way more than just a lookout, though,
marvels Antonio.
It looks like it must have been some kind of old military building,
Nathaniel replies.
Like a fort,
cries Antonio.
I bet it's an old abandoned military fort.
They trace the remains of a long abandoned pathway until they reach the impressively grand main entrance.
Well, look there over the entryway,
says Nathaniel. He points to a faded but formally lettered sign embedded in the stonework above a set of imposing iron doors. Fort Bowden.
Well, that's it, brother.
Well, time and tide,
Antonio remarks, repeating a phrase he'd often heard his father say.
Want to see if there's a way in?
Well, I think we have to at this point, since we trekked all the way up here,
says Nathaniel.
What do you think the odds are it's unlocked?
Nathaniel approaches the enormous arching double doors. They are enrobed in a coating of thick black paint and do not budge even slightly despite his most forceful insistence.
Locked tight with a padlock.
He sighs with a hint of dismay.
There's got to be another way in.
They pace about the entryway, scrutinizing the old foundation in hopes of an alternative entry point that might have been overlooked.
Can we get in through one of these windows?
Asks Antonio, scanning the walls.
They don't seem to be wide enough to squeeze through, though.
He notes almost immediately.
Well, let's look around back and see if we can't get a bead on the roof somehow,
suggests Nathaniel, wandering toward the ocean-facing backside of the fort.
Okay,
murmurs Antonio, still intent on finding an anchor or foothold that might be useful for scaling the wall somehow. Perhaps something to which a rope could be fastened, or maybe a makeshift ladder someone left behind.
Hey, brother!
Rings Nathaniel's voice distantly.
Come see what I found!
Antonio snaps to attention and dashes toward the sound of his brother's call. Antonio slows his pace as he rounds the side of the fort. He once again gazes upon the deep Atlantic Ocean. Daylight is no longer on their side. The sunset's purple reflection fades into darkness along the horizon. Antonio finds Dathaniel standing next to a badly rusted flagpole on a narrow precipice which extends a few yards beyond the fort's foundation. Antonio peers over the squat stone wall enclosing the flagpole platform. He swallows hard. The fort is situated above a nearly vertical cliffside, which plummets dramatically into a deep chasm below. The rock face is mostly free from vegetation, with the notable exception of an ancient and enormous red pine, which emerges from the inky depths of the crevasse. The far side of the fort stands 2 stories above the platform where the boys stand. The immense stone wall is completely exposed to the elements due to the proximity to the precipice. The fort seems to rise seamlessly from the bedrock, masterfully engineered to maximize visibility as it watches over the bay. The wall is divided into 2 floors, each with a row of 10 evenly spaced windows lined in brick. Antonio steadies his stance. He notices Dathaniel peering intently into a large gap where 2 corners of the wall closest to them converged.
Whoa, that's a heck of a hole punched through the wall. I wonder what would have caused that,
says Antonio.
Looks like way more than just decay from the weather, right?
He continues.
It does.
Dathaniel agrees, eyeing the damage.
Solid stone mortar work like that? It could have been cannon fire from an enemy ship in the bay.
He adds with a twinkle.
I bet it could have been.
Returns Antonio, struggling to determine whether there was anything to see on the inside.
It looks like there's some sort of a catwalk or something peering through on the other second story. You suppose we could squeeze through that gap if we could get up there somehow?
Their heads both turn to the lone red pine before them.
This big old tree looks pretty sturdy. Now, I bet if we could make our way up there, we could shimmy across that big bough.
Dathaniel observes. Antonio looks up at the hole in the wall. It's only about 8 feet off the platform on which they're standing. That wouldn't be too difficult to reach, would it? But then he makes the mistake of glancing downward.
Whew.
He gasps.
That's got to be at least a 200-foot drop to the cliff right below.
Nah, I don't think it's as dangerous as it looks.
Chides Dathaniel, undaunted.
Hey, grab your handkerchief and wrap it like this around your palms.
He demonstrates wrapping his handkerchief around his fingers and tucking the ends under like a bandage.
And that'll help keep the pitch off your hands.
He braces himself against the trunk of the tree and pulls on the long branch with all his weight.
All right, brother. This branch is plenty sturdy. I'm ready to give it a shot. Okay, here we go.
He moves his hands carefully, one over the other. He shimmies horizontally toward the gap in the wall, swinging his legs haphazardly as he goes. Antonio can't help pacing in place as he watches.
Careful, careful.
This is a cinch,
says Dathaniel, who holds the title of triple rope course champion at summer camp for 3 years running.
You're practically there. A couple more feet and you're in.
Cheers, Antonio. Dathaniel swings his legs back and forth twice, and on the third swing forward, he releases his grasp on the branch. He lands with a heavy thump, which Antonio hears from the outside. Dathaniel ducks into the gap and disappears from sight.
Hey, this is neat, brother.
The walls of the fort amplify Nathaniel's voice, making it reverberate as he calls.
You've got to see it. Come on up.
Antonio approaches the trunk of the tree and reaches for the gnarled branch on the pine. It didn't look nearly as sturdy as Nathaniel had claimed.
Yeah. Okay. Whew.
He exclaims poorly masking his trepidation.
That's a pretty keen drop, huh?
He takes a quick, deep breath and grasps the branch with both hands. He slides them cautiously down the bough. His legs remain still as possible. Was it his imagination, or did the wind start to blow much harder? He bites his lower lip and squints his eyes shut as he continues to make his way.
You're doing grand, brother,
coaxes Nathaniel.
Okay, just keep your eyes straight toward the wall. Slide your hand over. Yeah, now the other one. Don't look down. You'll be fine.
Antonio stares forward and inches his way until he was face to face with both the opening and his brother.
All right, now, how did you get in from here?
Squeaks the nervously dangling Anthonio.
Well, you can just kind of swing your legs and get some momentum, then hop in.
He mimes swinging by rocking his torso back and forth while holding his arms above his head.
Well, maybe I should just...
Antonio sputters with increasing tension.
Okay, here goes. 1, 2...
He swings his legs backwards, forwards, backwards again, then kicks them once again forward.
3!
He releases his grip on the branch and sails leg first toward the open gap in the wall. Now we're down to Chapter 3. Fort Bowden. Whump! Antonio's feet hit the hard wooden floor with a hefty thud.
Whew! Well, that wasn't so bad.
Beams Antonio triumphantly.
But my heart's still kind of pounding.
Yeah, you never were too fond of heights, old brother,
Remarks Dathaniel.
It'll be easier to get out because there's another branch just below, see?
Antonio peers back through the breach. Indeed, the branch below the one on which they had swung would make departing much easier than it was to get inside.
Okay, now watch your step. The wood's a bit soft here where it's been exposed to the elements.
Cautions Nathaniel. The air in the interior of the fort is substantially cooler than the boys might have expected. The narrow catwalk where they stand runs along the length of the fort's interior wall and encircles a large, mostly empty room about 15 feet below. Antonio takes a step forward. The boards let out a sullen creak, and he feels them sag under his feet.
Ooh, I see what you mean.
Says Antonio, joining his brother. He was careful to test the next few steps, gingerly tapping his foot before committing his full weight.
Let's have a look around.
Nathaniel beckons eagerly.
Well, this must have been some sort of big storage area. See the pulley over there in the corner?
Antonio points to the opposite side of the room.
I bet they used it to haul things up to this balcony.
We probably used it to haul up cannonballs and old muskets and powder kegs, eh, brother?
Says Nathaniel with glee.
Well, let's see if we can find any.
Antonio turns his attention to one of the windows that looks out on the bay. It is coated with a powdery grime deposited over the years of disuse. He presses his hand against the old glass and slides his index and middle fingers round and round in an uneven circle. This clears just enough grime to see outside the fort.
It's getting kind of dark.
Antonio hesitates.
But I suppose we can explore just a little.
They continue cautiously along the catwalk until they reach a well-used ladder built against the side. At the bottom, the boys find themselves in the empty expanse of the storage area. The dwindling sunlight makes it increasingly difficult to spot anything out of the ordinary.
There's not much in here.
Nathaniel announces.
Well, let's go over to that vestibule.
He motions toward the passage to a small chamber beyond the empty storeroom.
That must be the main entrance. The one that was locked from the outside.
He continues.
Oh, hey, yeah, let's go get a closer look.
Chimes Antonio in agreement. The vestibule confirms Nathaniel's suspicion. The archway on the unwavering set of double doors curves at the top and is set deeply into the masonry. They are just as unwavering from the inside as they were outside. The wall to the left holds a smaller, equally stoic interior iron door.
Antonio, look! There's stairs leading downward behind this other gate.
Nathaniel exclaims. Antonio steps closer to the door. A window is forged on the upper portion of the door in the form of a thick grid of bars. The stairs descend downward to some lower level of the fort, but that was as much as could be seen. Whatever lies beyond that door is masked by pitch blackness. He is suddenly very aware of how late it was getting.
Nathaniel, we should come back up here tomorrow with our flashlights and explore more.
Says Antonio.
We better head back now, though.
Antonio turns towards the storage room.
Well, hold up, brother. Look here. I found something.
Nathaniel spies something almost impossibly difficult to notice in the dark recess beside heavy iron doors.
Here, help me move this big box into the light.
Okay.
replies Antonio hesitantly.
But then I think we have to get out of here. We still have to walk all the way back down to the lake.
Okay, let's just pry the lid open, and then we can leave.
Coaxes Dathaniel. They slide the crate into a remaining sliver of daylight which drifts lethargically through the room's filthy window. It is a sturdy kind of wooden crate used to haul bottles of tonic, but any sort of brand markings are faded beyond recognition. It appears to be about 2 feet wide and half as high. There are no indications of what the box might contain other than "Do Not Drop," neatly stenciled in black letters on each of the sides.
I know we shouldn't be opening boxes that aren't addressed to us,
says Antonio unconvincingly as he places both hands on top of the crate. Together they push the lid free and carefully set it aside.
What do we have here?
The crate is filled to the brim with several neat stacks of rectangular cardstock forms. Dathaniel and Antonio both kneel to inspect the forms more closely.
These look like, I think they're ballots, like for an election?
Antonio offers.
Primary election, June 7th, 1927. They're even punched, see?
June 7th?
Returns Dathaniel.
Well, I think there is an election tomorrow. But if the election isn't till tomorrow, why are they already punched?
Yeah, and what are they doing all the way up here in this abandoned military fort?
Asks Antonio.
Good question. Hey, a note slipped out when we opened the box. What does that say?
Antonio retrieves the single sheet of paper which had managed to escape the crate. It had floated several feet as the lid was lifted. He pinches the note between his fingers and extends his arm with precise movement to capture the maximum illumination from the sunset with its ever-faint glow.
Well, these are instructions or something, all neatly typed out.
Antonio starts.
Now listen to this.
He reads the note aloud.
Mr. S will leave completed forms at FB. Mr. K to transport the package at dusk for count at CH Tuesday evening. Mr. S will dispose of the rest and transport the latest shipment. Be careful and avoid detection at all costs. One wrong move could jeopardize everything. This means you. And it's signed HMB.
Nathaniel studies the typed letters with purpose.
FB.
He ponders.
I wonder if that could stand for Fort Bowden, because that's where they are now, huh?
Oh, could be,
says Antonio.
Oh, this note is dated today, so you know what that means.
Yeah, and Antonio, it also says dusk. That's about now, isn't it?
The boys both feel a tingle in the hair on the back of their necks as it stands at attention.
Nathaniel, I think we better get out of here for tonight,
says Antonio solemnly.
Oh, it's too dark to explore anymore, and we probably don't want to risk being here if that Mr. K shows up. Let's put the box back the way we found it.
You're probably right,
says Nathaniel as he handed the lid to his brother. He pauses a beat.
Did the note sound a little ominous to you two?
Asked Nathaniel.
Whatever's going on seems to be tied somehow to this box of ballots.
Antonio guides the lid into small grooves on top of the tonic crate and pushes the smooth plank until the crate is sealed again.
There,
says Antonio, brushing his palms together.
Lid's on square.
Antonio!
Shouts Nathaniel.
Well, I forgot to put the note back in. Can you open it up again?
Oh, okay, sure. Let's see.
He pushes and pulls, taking care not to upset the stack of cardstock within the crate.
It's stuck. I can't get the lid off.
Well, should we leave the note beside the box?
Asked Nathaniel.
I think that might look suspicious.
Says Antonio.
Why don't we take it with us as a clue, and maybe we can figure out who all these mysterious men with the one-lettered names are.
And what they're up to.
Exactly.
Asked Nathaniel.
Exactly.
Says Antonio.
Now let's get out of here and head for home.
Of course, these are the main doors leading out of the fort right here, but...
Nathaniel reaches for the door handle and gives it one last unsuccessful try.
Too bad they're locked on the outside.
He grumbles. Antonio takes a deep breath and shrugs his shoulders.
Guess we're going to have to go out the way we came in.
that's the end of that chapter.
Still about 15 minutes, so we want to do the chapter 4?
Yeah.
Chapter 4, Pettitshire Museum and Trading Company. The boys traversed the brushy path down the bluff with nothing more than the stars and bright half moon to navigate home. As they returned to the lake, Anthonio deftly retrieved the wicker basket from the branch to which it still safely fastened. Dathaniel gathers the fishing gear from the boathouse and they continue to the road back to town. To pass time on the final leg of the trip, Anthonio and Dathaniel take turns spotting constellations visible in the clear of the evening sky. Before long, they are standing at the foot of a long sloping driveway which curves gently up a fuzzy yet well-manicured lawn. The wrought iron signpost marking the entrance to the drive from the street is all but invisible in the night shadow. As they venture forward, the moon's cool glow reflects faintly from the silhouette of a handsomely lettered sign, which reads, Pettitshire Museum and Trading Company, Mr. and Mrs. N.B. Pettit, Curators. The driveway terminates at an unusual yet regal Victorian manor, nestled comfortably into a small forest of tall birch and maple trees. Massive limestone blocks support 3 distinct levels. The steep rooftop, crowned by distinctive red shingles in the daylight, is now shrouded in darkness. The boys' family residence occupies only a portion of the grand building. A modestly sized museum of some renown shares the southern wing. This configuration takes advantage of the exposure to the street below. The original museum was erected in 1818. It served as a means to showcase the collection of rare and unusual artifacts gathered through generations of family exploration and adventures around the globe. A motif of tiny brass anchors, sextants, and marine life dot the gables and balusters on the wraparound porch. These reminders of the family's maritime heritage are peppered throughout every floor of the house. Locating and cataloging these ornaments is a favorite pastime. Anthonio and Dathaniel have found well over 300 tokens so far, but these are rumored to be at least 7 dozen yet to be discovered. The main entrance opens onto a sweeping front porch which wraps around the entire first level. A stoic conical tower watches the southeastern corner of the estate like a sentry, while a smaller octagonal tower keeps an eye on the backyard on the northern side of the house. The wide front door on the porch also serves as the main entrance for the museum. A lacy white curtain masks the foyer beyond the large rectangular window. The room appears dark through the corners of the veil, which is gathered in the middle like a giant bow tie. The door would most certainly be locked this late in the evening. To avoid undue commotion, the boys conclude it would be best to slip through the pantry on the back side of the house. They dart along the brick pathway, which branches from the portion of pavement intended for visitors. Anthonio lifts the latch on the gate of a small fence, which encloses the backyard. Light from the house reflects off the droopy boughs of a weeping willow, planted adjacent to the back porch. This is a good indication the family might still be awake. In the summertime, nearly every window is open at least a little to assist in circulating the still warm air. Each of the glass globes illuminating the back porch are surrounded by a concourse of winged bugs and insects fluttering chaotically in a frantic ballet. The back entrance has been left open behind a creaky old screen door. Anthonio pulls the handle on the frame and steps into the pantry. Dathaniel follows and pulls the screen door closed behind him.
Welcome home, boys,
Booms a gravelly voice from the kitchen.
Supper was served a couple hours ago, but we saved you plates.
The silhouette of a rakish figure shuffles to the doorway of the pantry. He snaps a small knob on the wall beside the frame. A bulb at the end of a pair of twisted wires pops to attention, flooding the shelves with a cozy glow. The light meanders among rows of richly hued jars, packed tightly with preserved fruits and vegetables. It waltzes over tiny stacks of tin cans wrapped in festive labels and onto the dry goods and flour bins recessed into the wall. A man in a blue velveteen waistcoat and a jovial expression walks toward them, pushing the linen sleeves of his shirt behind his elbows as he approaches. This man is Henry Bottlesby, a sprightly and aged family friend and long-serving household butler. Henry, or Hank as he is known affectionately to the boys, has lived and worked at Pettitshire since long before either of the boys could remember. A sparkle dances upon his beady black eyes as he speaks.
Yeah, hand me gear in those trout.
He continues.
Now I'll get them all cleaned up and put them on ice for you.
Henry circles the boys and plucks the skinny fishing rods from their hands. He tucks each rod under his left arm and pulls the wicker basket out of Antonio's hand with his right. The basket whispers a soft crackle when he holds it against his flank.
Thank you, Henry,
says Antonio. Dathaniel glances down the dark paneled hallway beyond the kitchen.
Are Mom and Pop still up?
He asks.
Yeah, they're still in the lounge,
replies Henry.
They were hoping they could catch up with you kids before they went down for the evening.
Okay, we'll go say hi,
says Antonio, walking into the cavernous kitchen. He crosses the waxy chessboard floor and spies 2 dinner plates on the counter by the icebox. His stomach rumbles inquisitively.
Do you think we could take our supper in there?
He asked, turning to Henry.
Yeah, of course. I'll fix it right up and bring it to you. Yeah, I bet I can have it ready in 15 minutes.
Boasts Henry in hearty confidence. He slings the basket of trout to the top of a thick wooden chopping block which bears scars from the decades of heavy use.
Thanks, Henry,
chimes Dathaniel. The brothers leave the kitchen and continue into an expansive hallway. The floor is inlaid with an intricate herringbone pattern. The ceiling is segmented by a grid of sturdy box beams. They pass beneath a long row of oil paintings of exotic animals and mythical sea battles adorning the walls. The hall is flanked by deep shelves filled with dozens of field guides and catalogs of the natural world. A narrow brocade carpet stretches from one end of the long hallway to the other. They pass the elegant formal stairway to the upper levels and under an enormous chandelier made from a trio of anchors and continue further to the grand lounge. An old grandfather clock beside the stairs sounds a distinctive arpeggio while intricate illustrations of celestial bodies dance above the clock's face. It is now exactly 11:15. With all of the windows open, the song of the crickets is almost as loud inside the house as it is outside. As the boys cross into the lounge, 2 familiar voices emerge over the insect's steady drone. Their mother reclines on a sweeping davenport with her back to the doorway, but can be heard speaking plainly. Larger space. I think it's just wonderful the ladies' auxiliary is finally going to be able to do something useful with those old buildings on the waterfront. That's why I plan to vote for it, declares Linda, the boy's mother.
Well, I guess we're both voting to give it to him then, dear.
Returns her husband from a comfortable wingback chair with ball and claw foot legs. His nose is buried deep in the late edition of the Jetty Bay Tribune. Nick spots his son as they enter the room and lowers his paper.
Oh, hello, fellas.
Linda holds a periodical with a vivid color photograph of Mayan pottery on the cover.
Any excitement? Sorry.
Any excitement at the lake today, boys? You were out so awfully late, she asked, setting the magazine on the side table beside the davenport.
Why, of course there was excitement, dear,
asserts Nick, not waiting for a reply.
Oh, bet our 2 junior anglers here didn't leave a single trout up in that old lake.
He cocks his head sturdily and looks into his son's faces.
Yeah, I hope you didn't run afoul of the catch limits. We might have to turn you into the game warden.
Oh, now don't say that, Nicky, Linda scolds teasingly. The boys won't know that you're joking. Nick winks and the corners of his mouth curl into a playful grin.
Oh, that's all right, Ma,
says Antonio with widening eyes.
We did bring back a good haul, but that wasn't the real excitement.
Real excitement, eh?
Challenges Nick expectantly.
Yeah, we got into that old abandoned fort up on the bluff overlooking town,
Nathaniel announces. Oh, the fort on the hill, recalls Linda. Yes, Nicky, what do they call that old place? Nick scratches his chin with his thumb as he thinks.
It's old Fort Borman, not Bovine? It's Fort Bowden, Pop.
Dathaniel exclaims gleefully.
Oh, yeah, Bowden. Right, that'll do.
Nick agrees.
You know, they used to use the old tower to fire shots at pirates in the bay. Hey, did you find any one-legged skeletons down there?
Antonio thinks back for a moment.
No, but...
You know, chimes Linda, your brother Chris would know something about the history of that old place. Her eyebrow raises slyly. I'll tell you what. If you boys are feeling like an assignment, I have a package that needs to be delivered to your brother at the college. Maybe you two could catch a train over to Montgomery tomorrow morning, and while you're there, you could ask him all about the fort.
Well, sure, Ma. Chris will know all about it, won't he?
Antonio affirms proudly. His expression changes.
Hey, Ma. Was that the election that you were talking about when we came in?
Why, yes, says Linda, chuckling at her son's abrupt and earnest change of subject. The whole town is voting on whether to turn the old armory building over to the Women's Auxiliary so that they can fix it up as a civic center. Everyone I know thinks it's a wonderful idea to finally fix that ratty old place.
About time.
Nick murmurs softly, returning to his paper. Ahem, Linda continues. Why the sudden interest in politics, Antonio?
Well,
Begins Antonio.
it's just when we were poking around in the fort, we came across a big crate.
He pauses sheepishly.
And I know we shouldn't go opening boxes that aren't addressed to us, but...
Go on, son. What did you find in
Nick demands with feigned impatience.
there? Ballots!
Beams Nathaniel.
Ballots?
Nick eyes him incredulously.
What? Are you sure that they were ballots, son?
Pretty sure, Pop.
Says Antonio confidently.
I didn't get a real good look at them on account of it was getting dark, but one thing I saw for sure is that they had tomorrow's date on them, and they were already punching everything.
Now, why would they be all the way up there in that old relic, wonders Linda. I'd have thought no one should have any of those ballots till tomorrow. And you'd think any punch ballots would need to be tallied down at the town hall. They usually keep those under lock and key, don't they, Nicky?
Well, I think so. Maybe the town still uses that old place for storage.
Nick offers. Henry enters the lounge with 2 plates covered by silver lids on a tray. He places the tray on the coffee table. The lids clatter against each other as he lifts them.
Your supper's ready, kids.
He says, stepping backward.
Thanks, Henry.
Henry?
The boys said in unison. He retreats back to the kitchen, and the boys take their plates to a short round table in front of an open window. They tuck into their dinner plates, now aware of how hungry they'd each become.
Hey, Pop.
Says Antonio between bites.
Well, there was something else. Dathaniel, show him the note we found.
Nathaniel drops his fork and jams his hand into the front pocket of his knickers to retrieve the good note. He unfolds it and passes it to his father.
Now let's see here.
Says Nick, studying the note beneath his reading lamp. An electric fan on a tall door stand purrs in the corners and sways from side to side. Each oscillation startles a gray moth on the lampshade. It flutters chaotically for several seconds before settling back in roughly the same location it had just departed. The paper flutters each time the page catches the draft. Oh, what does it say, Nicky? Linda probes. Your back's not as transparent as when you were young.
Mr. K. H.M.
Nick mutters some of the mysterious initials as he scans the letter.
Well, it doesn't tell us much.
It's starting to sound a little on the sinister side, isn't it, dear? Linda inquires.
Well, I admit it is a bit peculiar, but let's not get too carried away.
Cautions Nick.
You don't want to get a reputation for spreading rumors that turn out to be nothing.
Nathaniel, let me have another look at that note.
Says Antonio.
Anyone know who HMB might be?
He holds the note close and carefully examines each line of text before making an observation.
Hey, Pop.
He says.
Well, look at the way the letter H is kind of distorted.
His father leans in closely over his shoulder.
You're right, son.
Each capital H is misshapen and slightly out of alignment with the other letters.
Well, the type bar for that letter must have a flaw in it.
Nick concludes. Antonio scrutinizes the text a bit more.
Do you reckon there'd be a way to figure out which typewriter was used to type this note on?
He wonders.
Oh, well, yeah.
Nick exclaims.
That is, I've read that typographic forensics is actually quite important in the field of crime solving.
Linda stands and places her hand purposefully on Nick's shoulder. Well, your father and I are going to head off to bed now, aren't we, dear? Nick raises his arm and holds his wife's slender fingers in his. He pushes himself to his feet with his free hand. Don't get into too much trouble, boys,
We won't.
Dathaniel assures her.
Good night, Ma. Good night, Pa.
The parents exit the lounge through the hallway and ascend the grand staircase to the upper level of the house. Antonio glances at an elegant clock resting on the mantel of a huge empty fireplace. It is impossible to hear its works over the drone of the crickets, who are still carrying on outdoors at this late hour.
We better head off to bed too, Nathaniel, so we can get an early start on tomorrow.
Yeah, right said, Antonio. We'll head into town first thing, and then we can take the train out to Montgomery and see Chris.
Okay.
Nice.
And that's where we will stop for today. So, yay. Thank you. So that is the first portion of Lights in the Old Fort, the novelization. And next week we will continue with the next few chapters that we have available, and during which time we're going to meet a bunch of new characters and, yeah, really kick this adventure off. So tune in then. And then if you really can't wait to hear how it ends, feel free to go to brothercast.net and check out the podcast as well as earlier episodes of the Pettit Brothers Brothercast from seasons past.
And that will also be where you'll be able to see the completed version of the novel once it's all polished off.
Perfect. Cool. Well, until then, I guess we're wishing you the best of the week.
And a safe return to us next time.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Good night.